Joining us for a local reaction on the vice presidential debate is Mark Weston, author of The Runner-Up Presidency and a presidential historian, Rita Ferrandino, who is the voter by mail coordinator for the Florida Democratic Party, and Jack Brill, the vice chairman of the Republican Party of Sarasota. Welcome to all of you. Mark, let me start with you. And, who do you think won last night?
I think Pence won by a small margin. Kaine was interrupting him too often, and Pence was cool throughout. But today and tomorrow and the next day, the fact checkers will be working, and there were a lot of misstatements of fact by Pence. So it may be that during the fact checking stage, Kaine will be thought to have won. For example, Pence said that only 10% of the Clinton Foundation funds were actually spent on charities, when in fact it's more than 90%. That's a pretty big error in fact.
But the news cycles change so much. Even if the fact checkers find that Governor Pence exaggerated just a little bit, does it really even matter?
It may not. You may be right about that.
Senator Kaine came under a lot of criticism for how many times he interrupted last night. How many?
70 times.
And I bet you counted every single one of them.
No, I had someone, I looked it up, though, right afterwards.
Why wasn't Donald Trump as criticized as he was when he interrupted Hillary Clinton how many times?
51
yes.
times. And but I don't know how many times Hillary interrupted Donald Trump either. So
17, I think it was.
Was it?
Mm-hmm.
Oh, well, there goes. That case is gone now. So, now Governor Pence interrupted Senator Kaine 40 times. So there was a lot of interruption on both sides.
It was supposed to be the battle of the dads. And as I said at the outset, it was almost like the dads who would go to a Little League game, because that's what it kind of looked like, Rita.
So my touch point always is the morning after at the YMCA, because that's where the real people are, and that's where all the important discussions are happening. And no one was talking about the debate. Everybody was talking about the hurricane. Were we going to evacuate? What we were going to do? There was more chatter politically about Joe Biden having been in town earlier in the week than there was about this debate at all. So I really think that this debate there was not much to talk about. People weren't engaged, and it wasn't the two candidates. It wasn't the, Donald Trump and Hillary Clinton's debate was the most watched debate in history. And I think that's the debate that people cared about.
There were about 40 million people, about half the audience of the first presidential debate watched last night's vice presidential debate.
And I bet you if you ask how many went all the way through, it was a far smaller number.
It was the lowest viewership for a vice presidential debate since 2000. There have only been a couple of vice presidential debates that have lived in memory. You could talk about the famous Dan Quayle debate when the Senator Lloyd Bentsen said, you're no Jack Kennedy. And I could also remember Admiral Stockdale, why am I here? Who am I? Mark, are these vice presidential debates really not significant to this process at this stage?
If no one does any damage, they're not significant. But a vice presidential candidate can do sometimes a lot of damage. When General Curtis LeMay said Americans shouldn't have a phobia about using nuclear weapons, and that personally he'd rather die from a nuclear bomb than a rusty knife, it just stunted George Wallace's candidacy to a huge degree.
That might be a non-starter. But, on the other hand, as we mentioned, one could not imagine a worse debate moment than Dan Quayle in 1987 or 88. And obviously, George Bush, H.W. Bush, still won the presidency. So in the end, folks, do you think this is really going to have an impact in terms of this presidential campaign?
It probably will not have an impact. People are more ready for Sunday night's debate. But the one thing that did come out in last night's debate, in between all the interruptions, is there was actually some policy. You could see the differences between the two candidates, and there was some discussion, which was nice. I actually thought it was refreshing to hear issues being discussed. And then, so that is, that. But at the long run, by Friday, that'll be totally forgotten about.
There were a lot of Republicans who spent a lot of time last night going, wow, we wish Donald Trump would be talking about policy issues. I think that really was one of the highlights, is that they talked about issues and they were defining what the candidates' platforms really were. And that was probably the most interesting part of the debate.
Mark.
One impact it might have is that Pence called Putin a small and bullying man and advocated sending missile defenses to Poland and the Czech Republic. And up until now, Putin and Trump have been friendly. And if Putin was planning any kind of October surprise through WikiLeaks, he might have second thoughts.
I actually had heard that same comment, that The winner in this debate was really that they were able to get, from Tim Kaine's perspective, was able to get Tom Pence to say some things that they'll be able to hang on and use later on in the campaign.
Right. To your point about real policy issues, there were some highlights. They talked about abortion and women's health care rights. They talked about community policing, where they actually agreed, for the most part, with each other. We talked about the criticism of Senator Kaine, the criticism of Governor Pence, as we asked Joe Gruters about, is that he didn't really back up Donald Trump on a lot of different issues. And some criticism was that it almost seemed to be setting himself up for a presidential run 4 or 8 years from now. What did you think?
That's way above my pay grade. So and actually, obviously he reacted and answered and didn't answer what he, was comfortable with, and so I thought he did a very good job in, deflecting some of the I'm going to call it attacks, but the statements made by Senator Kaine. But you look at, who knows what the future will be. Politics is a 30-day cycle, and the world will be changed by then.
But you are right. I mean, Tom Pence was really on the defensive, having to defend Donald Trump's, Mike Pence's statements of Donald Trump that Donald Trump made. So I thought that was pretty significant too. He was on the whole defense the whole time.
He did a great job sidestepping Trump's worst utterances by saying, well, he's not a polished politician. I thought that was very skillful on Pence's part.
And I think you could see that obviously the Hillary campaign, or the folks on the Democratic side, they had really loaded up Senator Kaine to try and goat him on, debate him on, to get him to try and react. And I thought he did a really good job of sticking with a lot of the facts, answering the questions, and and that helped with the discussions of policy. And there are clear differences.
So we move on to the second debate between Donald Trump and Hillary Clinton, a totally different format, a town hall meeting format on Sunday. The question is the impact of really these debates over with, for the most part, after the first debate, or can Donald Trump really basically come back and despite the fact his campaign says that he won the debate, do better in the second debate?
Win the debate. That was pretty clear.
Mark, is there precedence for a candidate turning it around in the second and third
Absolutely. Romney
debates?
won the first debate against Obama in 2012, but Obama came back and probably did better in the second and third debates. So it could happen. However, the second debate is a town hall, and I'm not sure that Donald Trump has really done a town hall unless Sean Hannity was running it. So these are going to be ordinary people asking about ordinary problems, and he's going to be wanting to shift to Bill Clinton's sexual escapades, and these ordinary people are not going to want to hear it. So he may make some big mistakes in this town hall.
See, I respectfully disagree. I think Donald Trump will be more comfortable in a town hall setting. I think Hillary's actually less comfortable, with the interaction. So I think the town hall is a debate format is a great way for Donald Trump to really show and answer questions.
What do voters around here want to hear from these candidates? If you look at our Facebook comments, which I frankly don't know is a fair representation of how everybody around here feels, the dislike for Hillary Clinton is so intense. The dislike by some of Donald Trump is incredibly intense. There's been a lot of talk about whether Donald Trump will bring up the issues involving Bill Clinton. Jack, do you think that would be a mistake?
That was a long time ago, and the campaigns get paid a lot of money to, from a negative campaigns win. But I think from Sarasota and the Suncoast area, people want to know about Medicaid, Social Security, what's the federal debt, and I've mentioned it before in your show, we're spending $67 million a day in interest payments on our federal debt. What's the future generations for our next, future for our next generations? They want to hear, we've got intelligent voters in the Suncoast area. They want to know facts. What's the plan? Let's be specific.
And I think that's why Donald Trump has been struggling here. It's because our voters are really thoughtful and caring and want to hear about policy issues that affect them.
Mark, I'm going to give you the last word.
I wish $20 trillion debt sounds like panic, but there are 325 million people in this country. It comes out to $60,000 per person, and you have 20 or 30 years to pay it off. The debt that we have is nothing that a good economy can't solve.
All right. We have to take a quick break. Welcome back. We are discussing the first and only vice presidential debate. Our roundtable guests join us now for final thoughts. So in the end, folks, and we only have about 2.5 minutes, and I want to get on to one other thing, but the vice presidential debate was interesting, but is it really going to, in the big picture, mean anything in this campaign, Mark?
No, both candidates did well enough that it won't mean anything.
Either.
I don't think it will matter. I think it matters more that Joe Biden, the Vice President of the United States, was here in Sarasota this week.
I know you wanted to get to that, Jack.
I don't think it'll even matter. They did their job. They answered the questions. There wasn't anything major that came out of it. So on to Sunday night's debate with Donald Trump. And
One other area, and that is whether we are going to see either Donald Trump or Hillary Clinton back in our area before the election. I mean, we do remember that President Obama did come here when he was running for re-election, and that he came close to, in 08, winning. But Hillary has not been here during the general election cycle.
Well, Obama was here 5 days before the end of the election. So we don't know when Hillary will be by, but I expect that we will have Hillary Clinton here at sometime in the future. You know, Chelsea's been here, Bill's been here twice, and Hillary was here fundraising at the very beginning of this cycle. So I feel confident we'll see Hillary.
Mark, traditionally Florida has been so close over the last few election cycles. You know, the president in 12 barely won Florida. I would imagine both campaigns would be fighting for every single vote, whether this is a predominantly Republican area or not.
And as spoiled swing state voters, we expect the candidates to come to our communities, but Sarasota and Manatee counties combined are only 4% of the population of the state. So if they were to come to Florida 25 times, we really shouldn't expect more than one visit.
Jack, do you expect Mr. Trump or...
He's been here twice. We've had great rallies both times. He's actually been here 3 times when you include the First Statesman's Award. I wouldn't be surprised if he's back one more time. This has been a great area. He's got a lot of support here.
And you were with the Vice President the other day. What kind of thrill was that for you?
It was an unbelievable event. The most unbelievable part is that we had hundreds and hundreds of people that turned out that we were not expecting, that were not able to get in. The last debate really energized Democrats and Hillary Clinton's supporters, and I think that really was manifested in how many people came out to see Joe Biden. It was packed inside and outside.
Okay, well, we'll leave that there, but before we go, we want to share what some of our viewers are saying about last night's topic. During Hurricane Hermine, the Siesta Key wastewater treatment facility reached capacity, and staff were forced to release more than 3 million gallons of partially treated sewage into the Siesta Key Grand Canal. The facility was supposed to close this year, but will remain open now until the end of next year. Here is what some of our viewers are saying about the situation. Patricia O'Connor writes, just pumping it into our waterways, they should be ashamed. With cities up and down the Gulf Coast doing this, our beautiful beaches are becoming septic tanks. Disgusting. Fix it. Kate Martin writes, they don't care, although you know damn well they care if they live where the dumping happened. Disgusting. And Elsa Doe writes, Florida is known for beautiful beaches, but they aren't so pretty when they are full of raw sewage and dead fish, are they? Well, if you'd like to join the conversation about tonight's topic, just visit our Facebook page at facebook.com/news@7. I want to thank our guests for being here tonight. Mark Weston is an author and presidential historian. Rita Ferrandino is vote by mail coordinator for the Florida Democratic Party. And Jack Brill is the vice chairman of the Republican Party of Sarasota County.